We have here today is, I think, a great panel of ULI members who I've personally gotten to know or know better over the last year or so, who have really sort of interesting stories and situations that they've been managing in their business, in their professions, or that they will share with you. You know, and I think there will be some good insights and hopefully some take-home value. So, Tom, I'm going to start with you. So, Tom Cartledge, out of London, Benoit, you know, a young guy in a 70-year-old?
Absolutely.
70-year-old firm,
yeah.
Third generation,
yeah.
Leading in you know, having succession, and again, in a global role in the design profession, and with a big Asia presence as well. So why don't you give us some insight into what, you know, change in your organization over the last few years and how you're managing and dealing?
Yeah, well, first of all, sorry for the large photo. It's not a particularly attractive one, but as you say, I'm very proud at the age of 38 to be running the family business now for the last 4 years. We're a 70-year-old business, and it was interesting. I was listening on the radio last weekend. There was a statistic that came out of the US that the average lifespan of an S&P 500 business in the US will just be 16 years. And reflecting that back on our business, actually, we've had disruption continually in our 70-year process. 30 years ago, under my father, we sold the business to Fitch and became Fitch Benoit, which took us and elevated our brand from the Championship in football terms into the Premier League. 15 years ago, being a UK-only based business, we were invited to Hong Kong at that point to look after Kowloon Station and delivered a project there which disrupted ourselves. It brought new culture, it brought new currency, and now today 92% of our turnover is outside the UK. Being the black swan as I am, I was the disruptor 4 years ago, and probably in succession planning goes, we could write a book about how not to do it, how not to introduce a family member that comes in from a commercial property background to run an architectural practice. But without doubt, it's been the most fantastic 3 or 4 years. We started probably 3 or 4 years ago needing to reaffirm our business objectives. And I think it's really important through disruptions to be very clear about what you want to do yourselves. And behind some of those words, we want to be cutting edge, which we always have been. We wanted to be profitable and sustainable, and we wanted to positively give back. And it was great to hear Tom last night talking about the similar objective of making sure this organization, you know, makes a positive change to the places which it designed. What was apparent, though, was we needed to do an employee engagement process, and we recruited a fantastic company from New York, which is 164th. And we did what we call a fire starter program, and that was asking our younger members of staff, what do they think Benoit could be going forward? And we had 170 of our 500 staff come forward and actively engage in this process. And we asked them to consider what we would leverage in the organization, what we could modify, and what we wanted to eradicate. And this was always thinking back to the fact the world is changing and the process and the places that we're designing is changing. And over the next couple of years, which was the 2015 or 16, we introduced 14 new directors into our business. It wasn't trying to be somebody else, but we realized that there was greater skills that perhaps we could access. We looked at our own benefits package. The first time in our organization, we have people in their 20s, their 40s, and their 60s in the business, and we needed to change our benefits to make sure that people wanted to come into our business. Acutely aware that the average millennial will stay in a business, I think now 3 years, 17 times they'll change their job, and we've got to embrace that. There's no point in fighting it. We need to make sure Benoit is a great place to work during those 3 years and perhaps longer, but accepting that if people do move on, we have a great alumni program and people embrace and go off and do great things in their careers. By also looking at our business, we extended our reach, and we acquired a second business, Holmeswood, which joined the Benoit family. Yep. And we're really beginning now to see the benefit of some of that work. So for us, it was a total focus on the employee and giving them the opportunity. I mean, I don't think any of us can predict what Donald Trump will do next. We can't predict what Brexit will mean. But we can manage ourselves the best possible way by being agile and flexible. And just last thing to say, the telling thing for us, I guess, is, you know, ultimately a business needs to be successful. Through that 4-year period, we retained our EBITDA at around 15 to 20%, and we've grown our turnover. So you can manage disruptive change in an organization that's global whilst retaining the profitability on the bottom line.
Well, when the question was asked on the app, you saw the disruption options out there, and you said, "Oh, what's missing is people."
Yeah.
You know, and expand on that a little bit, and how's that changed in your organization, the sort of the demographic?
I think you know, our demographic in our organization has been radically shifted. Our average age is 33. We're 54% male, 46% female. Our average director group is 42. And the energy and the creativity these guys have got is fantastic, and I'm in that age bracket, I guess. But we're designing places for 30, 40, 50 years, and the people that are going to be using it are the people that are designing them. Right. And our total focus on the employee in terms of creating an environment they want to work at, a variety of projects that excite them, means that actually we've got a really good chance to disrupt ourselves continually by bringing in great talent, developing that talent, allowing it to fly elsewhere, or hopefully with us in the long term. So people for us is right at the top of our agenda. Technology for sure. Yeah. We want to be ahead of that, but actually we're not in the technology business, we're in the design and people business, and technology is a lever to allow us to do that.
Well, Jill, switching, to a disruptor, really. I mean, you, over the last 2 years or so, Tom's at a third generation, 70-year-old firm. Your business is what, 2 years maybe?
Yep.
Woman entrepreneur, sort of finding a gap in, filling the niche, I guess, in the disruption that's happening, sort of like Bill and Ryan were talking about today, between the sort of the landlord and the tenant. And how did you see that opportunity and and leverage that?
I think the best position to see kind of disruption coming is really from, I wasn't always a disruptor. If you understand my lens, I actually was a bricks and mortar developer before I saw the gap and the opportunity. So, in my head as a developer, I really saw world-class companies and hotel management companies like Four Seasons, like Capella, building great hotels and managing the hotel assets for developers and for landlords. And we ask ourselves, why don't we have something like that for office assets? Why can't we bring a branded environment, service rich, a great brand, and manage what we have? And we thought there should be something like that. There wasn't when we looked around. We really looked around globally as well. And then we thought, hey, you know what? We can do it ourselves. We wanted to do it ourselves, and we tried to. But there was a cost of failure, which was really high. Then I decided to come out and do it. As a startup, as an entrepreneur, you can't afford to fail fast. You can fail cheaper, fail faster, and then when you get it right, you bring it to the guys who cannot afford to fail fast and say, hey guys, look what, I got it. I know it, now we can do it. It's a little bit of fit in and stand out. I think I have the advantage of having been in their shoes, the developers and landlord shoes, that corporate angle, the corporate lens, but at the same time, also have, that touch the ground and that energy that allows us to get there faster. I think that was that opportunity to see that we could create that co-working brand, premium, work for developers, work with developers, with and for, to create something very unique and different and what the market really needs. I call it kind of, seeing the pain points and going for the throat. We can't afford to go for the throat.
So, and I guess I've assumed that everybody knows that the Great Room is a co-working, high-end co-working operator. And what's been the response from the developers, from the people you meet who you're sort of disrupting? Is there a range of responses?
That laugh is not at a question, right? There has been a range of responses. I think what's interesting, it's 18 months ago, everyone's asking what's co-working. Today, so many of you, when I spoke to you, you're like, it shouldn't even be called co-working. It's just working, because that's the way the future of work is going to go. It's working. So everyone's talking about it. Everyone's thinking about it, from landlords, institutional investors. The right attention is there. And they have different strategies, right? Some people are saying, we are going to do our own, we're going to do a JV, we're going to invest, we're going to dip our toes, we would work with tenants. I think the conversations are right, but I think I urge everyone to do something. Like, don't do nothing and don't watch it. And you can choose to say, so I'm going to say something controversial because I'm the rebel and I can.
Let's do it.
You can say that, you know what, I don't like the short leases. I don't like that these people have no good covenants. It's so flexible, 3 months, 6 months, you're going to go. I don't like that. So I like the big corporates with the long leases because I'm a landlord. I want to clip coupons. But the world's changing. People need different things. You can close your eyes, or you can say, what can I do to make that work, or what other benefits can I reap from that? It doesn't mean change your entire portfolio. It means that maybe instead of 100% big corporate long leases, maybe it's 80% and maybe 20% or 10% even. I need to look at something different because that's what people want next.
So, Christine Lee with Henderson Land, and this is a good sort of, again, subject to transition to find out how you're changing, I guess, the business, and how you're seeing opportunities or challenges such as, the co-working space, or evolving sort of what might be traditional businesses as we get technology and changing demographics, shared economy. Can you give us some insight into how that is happening at, again, similar to Tom, sort of an established corporate business?
Yeah. So I'm Christine Lee. I'm third generation in our family, and the family business is my 6 years. My 6 years with my family right now. And it's interesting because, I come from a very traditional background and completely guilty of all the talks this morning when everyone's talking about, why the developers moving so slow. And I think even personally, when I first joined the company, it was complete culture shock to me. Being one of the younger generation, how can I convince the senior management that there's things such as co-working, there's things such as property technology that's happening, and how do we get their buy-in so that we can move forward and try them out. And my personal path has been trying to figure out where are there spots within. So I look after the leasing portfolio, so properties that we hold on for the long term. So where are the spots that we can find some small breakthrough first? So I first started working on small asset enhancement projects with our malls, and then consequently moved on to kind of really figuring out what we're good at. And I think that's really important, being a big corporate, to be proud of what you're good at and continue doing that under an environment of disruption. So one of the recent projects that we completed was a-Changin, which is an art gallery building. And I think that building something like this, which is very tailor-made to a specific niche and doable because we have, we have sophisticated research team and build team, and doing that has been a success. That has actually given us a lot of confidence internally to continue to build out these tailored type of assets, be it for art. Our next project is one that's focused on wellness and the medical field, and so on and so forth. And I think it's important to admit what you're good at and what you're not good at. And what we're not good at is being fast, moving at a fast pace. What is technology about? It takes time for buy-in. Right. And so my approach to that is really getting to know everyone and through collaboration. How I got to know JL was we met last year talking about co-working and trying to come up with a structure that would work for us. Unfortunately, we're still talking about that, but at least we're in the loop. Right. Yeah.
We're having the conversation.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn and introduce James Wong now from Hong Kong Land. James, again, in a similar way, I guess a family business that wasn't primarily real estate, and now you're running the real estate side. How do you see change? How do you really identify? I guess do you have a process for identifying change? Do you have a process for making change, and how do you sort of connect the dots between sort of what's needed for the future and the process that you have now?
So this is the conversation that we've been having. Can anybody hear me? Hear me okay? Okay.
I can't actually.
Can you? Okay. Anyway, so this is a conversation we've been having, which I was asking, how does everybody go about identifying disruption? Okay. I mean, black swans by definition, you can't see them, right? So is there a process that people put in place to look? And the reason why I asked that is, so a little bit about my background. So people here may or may not know my father, Dr. James Wong, and his colleague that they've been in local real estate here for many years, Herman Fung. I came back in 2010 basically to begin the transition process. I am fourth generation on the engineering side of our business, all the way back to Nanjing in the 1920s. But only second generation in real estate. It was really my father who brought real estate into the family business. I know CY knows my dad for sure. Anyway, when I came back, prior to coming back to Hong Kong, I worked for many years in Toyota. I was an in-house lawyer there. And I absorbed a lot of the Toyota way of doing things. And as you know, Toyota is a great car. Toyota incorporates lots of technology into their cars, but it's not speculative technology. It's technology that's been, I won't use the word tried and true because that usually means that it's obsolete. But let's say technology that the engineers know is going to work and we can fix if it doesn't work. So typically speaking, we would only engage in ideas that we think are safe and that add value, because if it doesn't, the car will crash and people will die. So we kind of don't like that. And I took that whole mentality back here to Hong Kong with me, and Dad threw me into the engineering business for a while. So our engineering business includes the Hong Kong airport, includes doing some business with Henderson, for example. At the time I came back, I partnered up with my colleague called Zurich Chan, and the two of us looked at the company. I came back 2010, our stock price was 28 cents. We had 800 employees, and we had a turnover about a little less than 2 billion Hong Kong dollars. As of 2017, our turnover is now close to 6.5 billion. Our stock price is now at $1. It went all the way to $1.70. It fell back to about $1.50, and we're up to about 1,600 employees. So this is all because we started looking at applying different technologies to the company. We started looking at, for example, one of the strengths we had in this company was doing foundation work. We do a lot of foundation work for Henderson, for example. We looked at technology from California that allowed horizontal drilling. So instead of drilling straight down, we can drill up to 2 miles horizontally. That's basically pipe laying technology that we got from California. We also started looking at data centers. Those of you who have heard my other panel, I keep talking about data centers. That's another big thing that we're introducing. And currently we're looking at using drones to do precision surveys and to keep looking at construction sites. So we have a very big construction site right now near Lion Rock, where from the bottom to the top of the construction site is 130 meters. That's a mudslide risk. So we're sending drones up, using analysis, software, building BIM models to make sure that we try to minimize landslide risk. I think the answer to your question is I wish there was a process, but a lot of this I found out tends to be rather random. What tends to happen is the way that I was kind of bringing the new idea into the company was my dad used to like to hear good reports, good news, okay? I basically told everybody, I don't want to hear good news, okay? Good news means you guys are doing your job. I only want to hear bad news. So, like, for example, with this drone thing, it was our senior manager coming back and saying, you know, we're really worried about mudslides. We kind of don't know what to do, okay? I mean, there's some stuff that, you know, the traditional by-the-book way of doing things, but 130 meters, you know, that's a little worrying. How do we go about doing that? And so I think we ourselves look at changes basically by asking for, give me a problem, and then we'll see if we can find a decent solution.
Rather than identify and, you know, and sort of be prepared and plan for it.
Sure. I mean, you know, everybody knows blockchain is going to be disruptive, but if I brought blockchain into my business, right, what? Right?
So, you know, Tom, and then let's get to, say, a challenge or something that that hasn't worked. You know, an example of something that that, you know, in your process of identifying and driving change that that you're either still working on or, you know, again, was a you know, significant challenge.
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. I mean, I think in organizational change, the pace of adopting change is challenging for different groups. So we probably all know the change curve. You set off a great pace. It's full of energy. It's the honeymoon period of change. And then there's the valley of despair that people get into saying, is that change right? Should it be happening? And the pace you get out the other side depends on the business that you're in and those individuals within it and the ability to adapt change. So I think, you know, maybe rather than looking back saying every 15 years as an event, we're taking the view that actually there's going to be change continuing in our organization. And we set up about a set of principles and values and an agility in the organization that means the organization is receptive to change. If you look at it from a client's perspective, obviously our briefs are written by developers and we try and influence what the brief might look like. One of our probably most exciting projects at the moment is working for Heathrow Airport. We're their commercial master planners, which means for the next 20 years, actually we've written a book for them alongside CBRE and other consultants, which is their commercial plan. And we would like to influence a lot of things there now straight away. And driverless cars is a great example. The revenue on an annual basis from Heathrow, from the car parks, is about £110 million. We're looking at Terminal 6 at the moment. Naturally, you would say it needs a car park. It's there, the cars are still using that as a service, but in 5, 10, 15 years' time, we know the car park might be redundant. So one of the challenges we have for Heathrow is how do you replace that £110 million worth of revenue with alternative uses, vertical stacking, light industrial with resi on top, whatever it might be. So to influence there, to answer your question, it's hard at times to influence the change that you can see ahead of you if actually the client requirement right now is for a functional use of a space. So right now, Heathrow need car parks to keep the revenue. They know the problem is coming. Have they got the appetite to address some of that now? Thankfully, with Heathrow, yes, they have. But obviously, it's a regulated body. It's funded out of the aviation taxes, and therefore, there's challenges of the pace of that change. So you have to, from an organizational perspective, I think you need to breathe agility into the organization to accept and adapt to change. And on a client basis, it's working, hopefully, with like-minded people who are prepared to either build in that redundancy now to allow the change to take place in the future, or are going to take that step change now and introduce the different uses.
So, Christine, switching back to you, on the example that you gave of a-Changin and sort of having a strategy of sort of delivering and showing some results and then influencing, moving further. Has that opened up any? What opportunities internally or changes internally with your business models has that specific project opened for you?
I think for sure. I think Tom mentioned a lot about understanding just internally how much appetite and agility you have for change. And I think first starting a company, I recognized that it was very low. And working backwards to what we do best, with a-Changin, we really set out to understand from our consumers' perspective what they wanted, understanding their whole value chain of, say, in this particular project, an art gallery. They needed high ceilings, they needed good logistics, and from our point, we had all the resources to put together an ideal space, and it was, a prime spot in Central. So how do we bring out the most value in the most traditional real estate sense? So after a lot of research, we put the project together, and it has been a huge success. So much more than we anticipated ourselves. And especially for the art and culture market, which is a big shock as well. You have this vertical tower that, if you look at London and New York, it's probably a whole ground level art district. And now you have a vertical tower popped up in the middle of Central. So I think that shock value and the real estate value that we have created is something that is a breakthrough for us. And so we've kind of are following this example to build out very tailored niche products. And how I'm planning to bring in the next layer of value, which is technology, into this is now that we have a really excellent physical space, how do we add in the convenience, the excellent customer service, the communication through apps, platforms, to build on top of that layer. And again, we're seeking out good partners to work on this, because we also admit that we do not have the greatest capability to build this out ourselves. So it's all about being open-minded and finding the good partners is our next stage.
And that's being more and more embraced now internally, and the company. And so, James, it seems to have resonated sort of at the situation with you.
I'd like to ask a really quick question here to Jael, because Tom, Catherine, and myself are family businesses, Christine. Right? Kathy, sorry. Christine. Christine and myself are all part of the family businesses. And judging from what we were saying, we're all quite proud of what we're doing. But I go back to this morning's debate where the statement is made that real estate companies are moving too slow. Right. Okay, judging from what we're hearing here, it doesn't sound like we're moving so slow. So I kind of want to take the temperature about really how quick or how slow we're going by asking a disruptor, okay? The game is not grow the pie, because there's only so much land in the world. So by you winning, one of us has to lose. Who are you targeting?
Who am I? Who am I targeting to lose? Is that the question?
Well, let me put it this way. You may not necessarily be saying, I want this person dead. But if you win, who do you see is not going to be in this space to compete with you in the future?
Interesting. I don't see it as a zero-sum game, because I feel like, so we always think of it as, instead of currently people in the offices, so it's 8-hour business model or 8-hour business model or 8-hour workday at best. But we think of it as, why can't it be a 16-hour business model? Like, to the landlord, it's not just, would you try to get more rent from me? The bigger picture is, how can we keep people happier, win more of their hearts and mind and soul and wallets if they stay here at your space, your development, which is potentially great room is a part of. Why can't we delight them from the first cup of cappuccino to the last nightcap? That's the goal, isn't it? Then we're all happy. I mean, that's kind of my pitch to the landlords. It's not a zero-sum game. When I win, you win.
Do you believe that, James?
Not at all.
Yes, or not at all?
Christine?
I have a couple of my landlord partners, and hopefully a few more who would be my landlords here. I think there has to be some belief, like, you know, if we kind of sit still and do what we've always been doing and hope that nothing change, that's just unreal, right? So even if we don't get it right now, we have to kind of, you know, have a goal, have that vision, and then keep trying. And I guess I have the benefit of not having as much baggage. So I can be a little crazier, I can be the rebel, I can trash, you know, push the boundaries a little bit, get it right, get it wrong.
Right.
And I think I almost like it when people watch us get it right, test it, replicate it, because then more people know about it, more people believe in what we do ultimately. Yeah?
I'm trying to think of a tricky question for you now, James. What I would respond, though, is that, you know, property isn't a linear process, and I was in the development world, and, you know, it's not engineering, and it's not Toyota. Unfortunately, it doesn't line up neatly, and there is a level of creativity within it already, and there's a level of progression. We're all privileged to be able to say that we're changing places that people live. And the behavior of those individuals is what fascinates us as a business and everybody, because whether you make a slight change to the physical environment within the building, you're actually just creating a better environment for the people who want to live and work there. So I think, you know, not throwing it back, but I mean, it isn't an engineering-led. We can't always predict the future answers to the questions in real estate. There is already a built-in creativity and a level of excitement that exists, and I credit to what you're doing, because it's creating disruption and advancing that change. It's not, you know, it's a fantastic process. So I'm trying to help you here.
I know.
Come back.
I'll learn from
dig the knife.
Can I just add something? I think, you know, we're clearly in a, you know, in an era of disruption, and we don't know what it's going to be and the best that we can do, or in a way that's how we hire. We kind of look for the people who are the best learning animals. Okay, you see who can learn the fastest, learn well, outwork, outthink, and you put your bets on them. That's kind of what I do in my business. I feel I'm really close to the ground because we see what, I don't want to call them millennials. I'm a millennial. It's like a bad word now. So we see what occupiers, what new companies, what they're looking for, and I see them every day. I know who's, you know, who has more investments, who's downsizing, who's changing the team, who's decentralizing, who's open to decentralizing, you know, who's flirting. But when do the landlords, when does the leasing team see the guys? When renewal's up. And sometimes that's 3 years. Sometimes that's 5 to 10 years. You're quite removed from the ground. You have to see us as an ally. So instead of seeing me as a disruption to your business, it's like your business is getting disruption. We should collaborate. We should, you know, ally up and kind of solve the problem.
I mean, I think there's like 3 attitudes to how to see disruption, right? You either collaborate, you either invest and acquire it and run it yourself, or you start from zero. And definitely from starting from a corporate, you don't start from zero because that's the hardest. And the way I see it, it's like, how do we work to align ourselves, our vision, so that we do what we're good at, which is building and some parts of operating. But when we're in a world that's changing so fast and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and, you know, consumer behavior and their values or millennials are changing, we have to think of a solution which makes us the most agile as well. So I think there's different modes that can be sought out when we have to think, you know, put our vision out in the long term and not just, you know, the next year and the next 2 years.
And I think we've heard a lot of that, you know, sort of recognize your strengths, you know, address your, you know, weaknesses or areas where you could need help or collaboration. But, you know, how about some questions from the audience? I mean, we have, 4 really interesting people out here. I think fresh faces. And I think going through, what we're all going through here as our businesses change and our business models change, that hopefully resonates. So, do we have a question from the audience here?
You've had 3 people that have stepped into the shoes of succession. Right. If you were to give in one short sentence advice to someone in the audience who is stepping through that path, what would it be?
Good question.
Thank God my father's not here. Don't join a family business. No. For me, it was actually establishing my own career and my own understanding prior to joining the business. I think, there's some great stories of people coming through family businesses from the start, but what I benefited from starting as a broker at Healy & Baker in London and then going to be a property director of a business was different scales of businesses, what good looks like elsewhere, let's be honest, making mistakes in other businesses so you're not quite on the same pedestal as when you arrive, because rightly or wrongly there's a huge amount of pressure looking in at you to say, can you perform to the same level, or are you the same person as your father? And thankfully we're quite different. I think we describe him as a democratic dictator. I think I'm a little bit different, hopefully, or maybe not, I don't know. But so for me it's about getting some life experiences, getting out there, learning the ropes, seeing what good looks like elsewhere, and becoming your own person rather than necessarily trying to be the person before you, because their legacy will always be different to yours for different purposes, stage of business, growth, shape, change, whatever it might be. So, yeah, I mean, I think the 3 of us will talk privately about some of the challenges, but for me, get out there, learn something different, and come with a new idea and a new angle, and don't be afraid of putting that forward.
One sentence. Patience, the elders will eventually get it.
I was going to say patience, but I think making allies both internally, externally, and of all ages, from the young to people who can teach you a lot.
Well, what I'd like to do is give you, we've only got about 3 minutes left here, and I just wanted to give each of you a moment to sort of sum up, some real, again, kind of takeaways for the audience, and with some of the changes that you're managing now.
Next time I'm going to sit further that way so you don't come to me first. For me, it's about engagement of the employee. We don't have all the answers ourselves as the senior leadership team. For me, about disruption, where it comes from, what are the new ideas, it's from the freshness of thinking from different levels of employees within our organisation. And I go back to the award-winning programme that we put in place, which we will continue regardless of what changes in the external market. We will make our business as agile and flexible and creative as we can do. And that's going to be done from a bottom upwards, engaging our employees, creating an environment where they want to come to work, they have the benefits that they want to work on great projects. And that disruption, as I said, we can't manage the global market, we can manage ourselves and our performance within it. So that is the takeaway from my piece, which is, go back to the office and ask those questions. Are our guys really engaged in this process? Do they want the change as much as we want? Are they seeing the ideas, and are we giving them the voice to bring it forward, because they're the future of the business?
So the focus on people, the focus on
Total
talent.
Focus on people, yeah.
James or Christine, Jill, would you, is it similar for you? I mean, is the talent and the focus on people, what's most important, or is it the sort of the technology, the process?
You want to go next? Ladies first? Okay. Coming from California, technology is everywhere. I mean, there is technology littering the street, literally. What tends to make technology successful is that technology gets adapted by people. So my view is just building on top of, I completely agree with everything Tom has said, just building on top of that is engagement with society, engagement with communities. One of the reasons that I joined ULI is because this is a community of people who look big, who look into the future. And by joining this community, engaging, learning from you, I hope that I can maybe make some good predictions as to which technologies will be the ones that are disrupting the future.
And Jill, would it be, is it the people, is it, again, the focus on the people for you, or is it really?
Well, I worked in this great institution called Citibank for a while, and in Citibank they always say, change is the only constant, and it's kind of stuck with me, and it's true, whether we are, now, 10 years ago, change is the only constant, and I think this two things that I think about. One, it's that you require a certain ignorance to have great courage, to assume that you actually don't know everything or anything and challenge every assumption. So I think having that acceptance that I'm a bit ignorant, it's great. And at the same time, a bit of like audacity, I call it. The audacity to say that I know where I need to get to, and it's going to take me many iterations, but I know I can solve that problem. And I think that's kind of what I have. And I think any corporations, whether a big one, or big corporate, or a small startup, to have both that ignorance and that audaciousness, that audacity, would get you there.
And then I'll give you a final word here, Christine. And you know, for me, it seems like it's that, again, to focus on people. Maybe the customization, I think, is what you know, the approach that you're taking that seems to have resonated with me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people is kind of each company's greatest resource. And I know for myself, and being one of the younger, I wouldn't be where I am without the help of a lot of great people. And definitely, I think it's always our task to try and bring more of that energy into our company.
Well, I want to thank the panel, thank all of you as well, and Greg.
We want to thank you, John.